Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon, watching the stars drift past through the main view screen. His ship had been traveling for 3 days toward the Kepler 442 system, following strange energy readings that had appeared on their long-range sensors. The readings were unlike anything the Galactic Coalition had seen before. "Captain, we're approaching the source of the energy signature," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes from her station. She was Morrison's first officer and had served with him for over 5 years. Her voice carried the calm professionalism that had made her one of the best officers in the fleet. Morrison nodded and walked closer to the view screen. "Tony, what are your instruments telling you?" Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez looked up from his console, his dark eyes filled with curiosity. "The energy patterns are definitely artificial, sir, but they don't match any known technology in our databases. The readings are coming from something big, maybe several kilometers across." The USS Horizon was an exploration vessel designed for long-range missions and first contact situations. Morrison's crew of 43 was hand-picked for their expertise and ability to handle the unexpected. They had discovered new worlds, made contact with emerging civilizations, and solved mysteries that had puzzled the Coalition for decades. "Amy, are you picking up any communication signals?" Morrison asked his communications officer. Amy Chen shook her head, her fingers dancing across her control panel. "Nothing on any frequency, Captain. Whatever it is, it's not trying to talk to us." As they drew closer, the object came into view. It was massive, a structure that seemed to be made of a dark metal that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. The design was unlike anything in the Coalition's extensive archives. Curved surfaces flowed into sharp angles, and strange symbols covered its hull in patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. "My God," whispered Dr. Kevin Walsh, the ship's xenoarchaeologist. He had been called to the bridge as soon as they detected the object. "Captain, this is incredible. The design pattern suggests this structure is millions of years old. The builders were far more advanced than any species we've encountered." Morrison studied the alien structure. "Is it dangerous?" "I don't think so, sir," Rodriguez replied. "The energy readings are stable and I'm not detecting any weapon systems. But there's something else. The structure seems to be drawing power from somewhere. It's active but dormant, like it's waiting for something." The captain made his decision. "All right, we're going to investigate. Tony, prepare a shuttle bay. Kevin, you're coming with me. Lisa, I want you to monitor everything from here. If anything goes wrong, you have permission to leave immediately." Hayes nodded. "Understood, Captain, but I don't like this. Ancient alien structures don't usually just sit there waiting for visitors." An hour later, Morrison led a small team aboard the alien structure. The airlock they found seemed designed for humanoid beings, which was both reassuring and puzzling. The corridors inside were dimly lit by panels that activated as they approached, suggesting the structure was responding to their presence. Dr. Walsh was recording everything, his eyes wide with excitement. "Captain, these symbols along the walls are definitely a written language. The patterns are mathematical in nature, but there's something else. They seem to be describing some kind of protocol or procedure." The team reached what appeared to be a central chamber. The room was vast, with a high ceiling that disappeared into darkness. In the center stood a pedestal supporting a crystalline device that pulsed with soft blue light. "That's the source of the energy readings," Rodriguez said, checking his instruments. "It's some kind of beacon or transmitter, but it's not broadcasting anything right now." Morrison approached the device carefully. As he got closer, the symbols on the walls began to glow brighter. The crystal on the pedestal started to pulse faster, and a low humming sound filled the chamber. "Captain, I think we should leave," Walsh said, his voice tense. "The symbols are changing. I think our presence is activating something." Before Morrison could respond, the crystal flared with brilliant light. The humming became a deep, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through their bones. The symbols on the walls blazed with energy, and the entire structure began to shake. "Everyone out now," Morrison shouted. They ran through the corridors as the structure came alive around them. The lights were brighter now, and new symbols were appearing on the walls. The humming grew louder, and Morrison could feel it in his chest, in his head, everywhere. They reached their shuttle just as the structure released a massive pulse of energy. The wave spread outward from the alien beacon, invisible but powerful, racing across space faster than light itself. Back on the USS Horizon, Amy Chen was monitoring all communication channels when something strange happened. One by one, human voices across the galaxy began to go silent. First the nearby colonies, then the core worlds, then Earth itself. "Captain," she said when Morrison returned to the bridge, "something's wrong. I'm losing contact with human ships and colonies everywhere. The alien pulse, it's affecting every human in the galaxy." Morrison watched in horror as his crew began to collapse. Amy Chen was the first, falling forward onto her console with a peaceful expression on her face. Then Rodriguez slumped in his chair, followed by Walsh and the others. One by one, every human on the ship except Morrison and a handful of others fell into a deep, unresponsive sleep. "Lisa, what's happening?" Morrison asked, but Hayes was already unconscious at her station. The ship's AI, Aria, spoke in her calm electronic voice. "Captain, I am detecting a quantum resonance pattern affecting all human neural activity. The pulse from the alien structure appears to have triggered a species-wide stasis effect. Only 12 crew members remain active, and their brain patterns show increasing susceptibility to the effect." Morrison stared at his sleeping crew, then at the alien structure on the view screen. The beacon was now glowing brightly, sending its signal across the galaxy. He realized with growing dread that humanity had just gone silent, and he was one of the last humans still awake to witness it. "Arya, can you tell me what that structure was trying to do?" "Analyzing available data, Captain. Based on the quantum signatures and the effect on human neural patterns, I believe the structure was designed as a containment protocol. It appears to have been waiting for a specific trigger, possibly human contact, to activate a galaxy-wide stasis field affecting only humans." Morrison sank into his captain's chair, surrounded by his sleeping crew. Somewhere out there, billions of humans had just fallen silent, and he had no idea why or how to wake them up. 3 days after the silence began, the Galactic Coalition Emergency Council gathered on the station orbiting Centauri Prime. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a chaos of worried sounds. Ambassador Zexathalan of the Altarian Republic stood at the central podium, his blue-scaled skin reflecting the chamber's lights. "Fellow delegates," Zexathalan began, his voice carrying across the room, "we face an unprecedented crisis. Humanity has vanished from galactic communications. Every human world, every human ship, every human colony has gone completely silent." War Marshal Krethak of the Saurian Imperium leaned forward in his seat, his reptilian eyes gleaming. "Perhaps this is not a crisis, but an opportunity. Human space contains valuable resources and strategic positions. If they cannot defend these territories, others should claim them." High Sage Veltara of the Celestial Dominion spread her feathered wings in a gesture of concern. "You speak too quickly of claiming what is not yours, Krethak. The humans are our allies. They have kept peace in this galaxy for 2 centuries. Without them, old conflicts will return." The insectoid representative of the Hive Mind Collective clicked her mandibles together. "Our scouts report strange findings. Human cities function normally. Their machines work, their lights shine, their automated systems continue, but no human responds to communication. They appear to be in perfect stasis." Zexthalan nodded gravely. "This is confirmed by our own investigations. Billions of humans across hundreds of worlds lie in what appears to be peaceful sleep. They show no signs of disease or injury. They simply will not wake." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison floated in the observation deck of the USS Horizon, staring out at the alien structure that had started this nightmare. In the 3 days since the beacon activated, he had watched 6 more of his crew fall into the same silent sleep. Only he and 5 others remained awake, and he could feel the strange effect growing stronger in his mind each day. Dr. Kevin Walsh was still conscious, but barely. He worked frantically at his research station trying to decode the alien symbols they had recorded. "Captain," he said weakly. I think I'm beginning to understand some of these markings. The species that built this called themselves the Eternals. They were ancient beyond measure. Morrison helped Walsh to a chair as the scientist swayed on, his feet. What did they want with humanity, Kevin? That's just it, Captain. I don't think this was meant to harm us. Look at these symbols here. Walsh pointed to his translation work. This phrase keeps appearing. It roughly translates to protective sleep or guardian rest. I think they were trying to protect us from something. Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez joined them, his face pale but determined. Captain, I've been analyzing the energy patterns from the beacon. It's not just affecting humans randomly. The signal is specifically designed to target human neural patterns. Whoever built this knew exactly how human brains work. The implications sent a chill through Morrison. Are you saying they studied us before building this thing? That's impossible, Walsh said, then paused. Unless they encountered humans long ago, before we reached the stars. Captain, what if this beacon has been waiting for us for thousands of years? Back at the Coalition Council, the debates grew more heated. The Crystalline Syndicate had already begun moving ships toward human trade routes. The Quantum Collective was demanding access to human research facilities. Smaller species were choosing sides, preparing for conflicts that had been dormant for decades. Order, Sexthalin called out. We must not act in haste. The humans have been our partners in peace. We owe them time to resolve this crisis. Krethak stood, his massive frame towering over the other delegates. Time is a luxury we cannot afford. Without human peacekeepers, without human diplomats, this galaxy will tear itself apart. Better to claim what we can now than fight over scraps later. Hi, Sage Veltara's voice carried ancient wisdom. You forget the lessons of history, War Marshal. Before humans joined our coalition, we spent centuries in endless wars. Their influence brought us stability. Their absence may return us to darkness. The Ethereal Collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystal, Matrix spoke for the first time. The Celestial Sage speaks truth. Humanity's role in galactic evolution extends beyond their military or economic power. Their very presence changes the fundamental nature of how species interact. Without them, we may all regress to more primitive states. On the USS Horizon, Morrison felt the beacon's influence growing stronger. His remaining crew members were fighting to stay awake, but he could see the peaceful expression beginning to cross their faces. Soon he would be alone with the ship's AI. Arya, he said to the computer, can you maintain ship functions if I fall asleep like the others? Yes, Captain. I can keep the ship operational indefinitely. However, I cannot investigate the beacon's purpose or find a way to reverse its effects. That requires organic intuition and creativity that I do not possess. Morrison looked at his sleeping crew, then back at the alien structure. Then we need to find help. Are there any species that seem unaffected by this beacon? Scanning Coalition. Databases, Captain. The Ethereal Collective appears to be immune to the beacon's effects as they do not possess organic neural patterns. The Quantum Collective also shows no signs of disruption, though they are expressing concern about the galactic implications. As Morrison prepared to send a message to these potentially helpful species, reports began flowing in from across the galaxy. The Saurian Imperium had begun aggressive expansion into human territory. 3 minor wars had broken out between species that had been peaceful for decades. Trade routes were collapsing as human-mediated agreements fell apart. Dr. Walsh managed one final discovery before succumbing to the beacon's call. Captain, he whispered. The Eternals left a warning. Something about a catalyst race. They called humans the catalyst race, and said our influence on galactic development was both necessary and dangerous. What does that mean? Morrison asked, but Walsh was already asleep, a peaceful smile on his face. Morrison was now alone on his bridge except for the ship's AI. Around the galaxy, the absence of humanity was creating a vacuum that threatened to tear apart 2 centuries of peace. Species that had evolved beyond their warlike natures while in contact with humans were beginning to revert to older, more aggressive patterns. The silence of humanity was becoming louder than any sound they had ever made, and the galaxy was starting to understand what it meant to fear the quiet more than the noise. Morrison realized he was fighting a losing battle against the beacon's influence, but he had to try to find answers before he too fell silent. The fate of the entire galaxy might depend on understanding why the Eternals had built this protective prison for humanity. 3 months had passed since humanity fell silent, and the galaxy was burning. Captain Jake Morrison watched the news reports flowing into his ship's computers, each one worse than the last. The Saurian Imperium had claimed 12 human colonies, their war fleets moving unopposed through space that had been peaceful for 2 centuries. Morrison was now the only conscious human on the USS Horizon. The beacon's influence had finally claimed his last crew member 2 weeks ago, leaving him alone with the ship's AI. He could feel the strange pull in his own mind growing stronger each day, a gentle whisper that promised peace if he would just let go and sleep. "Area, show me the latest reports from the core systems," Morrison said, settling into his captain's chair. The bridge felt impossibly large and empty around him. "Captain, the situation continues to deteriorate. The Crystalline Syndicate has seized control of the major trade routes through human space. The Quantum Collective has begun harvesting technology from abandoned human research stations. War has broken out between the Altarian Republic and the Centauri Alliance over mining rights in the former human colonies." Morrison rubbed his temples, fighting off another wave of the beacon's influence. "What about the coalition government?" "The Galactic Coalition has effectively collapsed, Captain. Member species are withdrawing their ambassadors and returning to their home systems. Without human peacekeeping forces and diplomatic intervention, old territorial disputes are erupting across the galaxy." The truth was becoming clear to Morrison, with each passing day. Humanity hadn't just been another member of the galactic community. They had been the glue holding it together, the force that kept ancient enemies from each other's throats. Without human mediators, without human peacekeepers, without human traders bridging the gaps between different species, the galaxy was reverting to its natural state of conflict and isolation. Morrison had spent weeks trying to decode more of the eternal records that Dr. Walsh had translated before falling asleep. The work was slow and difficult without Walsh's expertise, but Morrison was learning disturbing truths about humanity's role in galactic history. "Area, display the eternal records that Kevin translated. Focus on the sections about the catalyst race." The ship's AI projected the alien symbols onto the main screen, along with Walsh's translations. Morrison read the words again, trying to understand their full meaning. "The catalyst race spreads change wherever they go. Their presence accelerates evolution, drives innovation, forces growth. But growth without wisdom leads to destruction. The catalyst race must be contained when their influence becomes too strong, lest they burn the galaxy to ash in their wake." Morrison leaned back in his chair. "Area, do you have any data on galactic development patterns over the past 2 centuries?" "Yes, Captain. Analyzing historical records. Since humanity joined the Galactic Coalition, the rate of technological advancement among member species has increased by 300%. Territorial expansion has increased by 200%. Population growth has increased by 150% across all coalition members. And conflicts? Paradoxically, while individual species have become more aggressive and expansionist, large-scale wars have decreased by 90%. This appears to be due to human diplomatic and peacekeeping efforts preventing small conflicts from escalating." Morrison felt a chill as he understood the implications. Humanity's presence had supercharged galactic civilization, making every species stronger, smarter, and more ambitious. But humans had also been the safety valve, the force that channeled all that increased aggression into peaceful competition, rather than devastating war. Now, with humanity silent, all those enhanced species were reverting to their base instincts without the moderating human influence. The galaxy was filled with civilizations that had been artificially accelerated beyond their natural development, and they no longer had the wisdom to control their own power. A priority message arrived from the Ethereal Collective, one of the few species that had maintained contact with Morrison throughout the crisis. He opened the communication, and the crystalline form of an ethereal appeared on his screen. "Captain Morrison," the being said, its voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We must speak. Our analysis of the galactic situation has revealed critical information about the beacon network. Network? Morrison sat up straighter. You mean there's more than one beacon? Thousands, Captain. The Eternals built an extensive network of these devices across the galaxy. The beacon you discovered was merely a single node in a vast system designed to monitor and control the Catalyst race's influence. Morrison felt the blood drain from his face. How do you know this? Because we helped them build it, Captain. Eons ago, when the Eternals first encountered evidence of humanity's future expansion, they came to us for assistance. We are beings of pure energy, unaffected by the quantum resonance patterns that influence organic minds. They needed our help to create a containment system that could be activated if humanity's catalytic influence ever threatened galactic stability. The revelation hit Morrison like a physical blow. You're saying you helped put my entire species to sleep? We helped create a safety mechanism, Captain. The Eternals foresaw that humanity would eventually spread across the galaxy, bringing rapid change and growth. This growth would be beneficial for a time, but if left unchecked, it would lead to a galactic war that would destroy all life. So, Beacon Network was designed as a temporary solution, a way to pause humanity's influence until the galaxy could adapt to the changes you had wrought. Morrison stood and paced the bridge. But the galaxy isn't adapting, it's falling apart without us. Yes, the Ethereal admitted. This was not foreseen. The Eternals believed that other species would fill the void left by humanity's absence. They did not anticipate that your influence had become so integral to galactic stability that removing it would cause civilization to collapse. So what do we do? How do we wake humanity up? That is the dilemma, Captain. The Beacon Network can be deactivated, but doing so would return humanity to a galaxy already destabilized by 3 months of chaos. Your species would awaken to find themselves in the middle of multiple wars, surrounded by species that have claimed human territory and resources. The very situation the Eternals sought to prevent might be inevitable. Morrison felt the weight of an impossible choice settling on his shoulders. Wake humanity and risk the galactic war the Eternals had feared, or leave them asleep and watch the galaxy tear itself apart in their absence. There's something else, Captain, the Ethereal continued. The Beacon Network is not just keeping humanity asleep. It's also suppressing something within your species, something the Eternals called the final catalyst. If the network is shut down abruptly, humanity may undergo a transformation that even we do not fully understand. As if summoned by their conversation, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Morrison checked the sensors and saw Saurian warships approaching, their weapons powered and ready. Area, are they hailing us? Yes, Captain. War Marshal Krethak wishes to speak with you. Morrison accepted the communication, and the reptilian face of the Saurian leader appeared on screen. Human, Krethak said, his voice filled with contempt. You are the last of your kind still awake. Surrender your ship and join your sleeping people. The age of human influence is over. The strong will claim what the weak cannot defend. Morrison looked at the approaching warships, then at his sleeping crew, then at the alien beacon still pulsing with its mysterious energy. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and he was running out of time to make an impossible choice. Captain Jake Morrison stared at War Marshal Krethak's reptilian face on the communication screen. The Saurian warships were closing in, their weapons charging for attack. Morrison had perhaps minutes before they would either capture or destroy the USS Horizon, making him truly the last conscious human in the galaxy. I will not surrender, Morrison said firmly. And I suggest you reconsider your actions, War Marshal. The galaxy needs humanity awake, not asleep. Krethak's laugh was a cold, hissing sound. The galaxy was strong before humans arrived, and it will be strong after you are gone. Your species has made the others weak and dependent. We Saurians remember what it was like to be truly powerful. Morrison cut the communication and turned to his AI. Arya, can we outrun them? Negative, Captain. The Saurian ships are faster and more heavily armed. However, the alien beacon structure is still generating an interference field that might protect us if we move close enough to it. Morrison made his decision. Take us in. and open a channel to the Ethereal Collective. I need to speak with them, immediately. As the USS Horizon moved toward the ancient beacon, the Saurian ships followed. Morrison watched them on his sensors, noting their aggressive formation. These weren't the same Saurians who had been part of the peaceful coalition for 2 centuries. Without human influence, they had reverted to their old warlike nature. The ethereal representative appeared on Morrison's screen just as the first Saurian weapons fired. The shots went wide, disrupted by the beacon's energy field. Captain Morrison, the ethereal said, "You are in great danger. The Saurians have claimed this system as their territory." "I know," Morrison replied, gripping his chair as the ship shook from near misses. "But I need to know more about this beacon network. You said shutting it down might cause humanity to transform. What did you mean?" The Eternals discovered that humanity possesses a unique genetic sequence that continues to evolve. They called it the final catalyst. The beacon network doesn't just keep humans asleep, it also prevents this evolution from occurring. If humanity awakens naturally, gradually the transformation would be slow and controllable. But if the network is shut down suddenly, the evolutionary leap could be dramatic and unpredictable. Morrison felt another wave of the beacon's influence wash over him. His vision blurred for a moment and he saw flashes of something impossible. Humans moving between stars without ships, minds connected across vast distances, technologies that seemed like magic. The visions faded, leaving him gasping. "Captain," Arya said urgently, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups across the galaxy. Multiple beacon nodes are showing increased activity." On the communication screen, the ethereal's crystalline form flickered with agitation. "This is unexpected. The network is responding to the stress being placed on the galaxy. It appears to be preparing for a complete shutdown." "What does that mean?" Morrison asked. "If the network shuts down on its own, every human in the galaxy will wake up simultaneously. The evolutionary catalyst will trigger all at once, across billions of people. We do not know what humanity will become, but the change will be immediate and total." Morrison realized the terrible irony of the situation. The Eternals had built the beacon network to prevent humanity from causing a galactic war, but their own system was about to cause exactly what they had feared. The galaxy was tearing itself apart without humans, and now the network was preparing to unleash an evolved humanity onto an already chaotic situation. "How long do we have?" Morrison asked. "Based on current energy patterns, perhaps 6 hours. Before the network reaches critical overload," the ethereal replied. More Saurian ships arrived, surrounding the beacon structure. Morrison watched helplessly as they began to attack not just his ship, but the ancient alien structure itself. They were trying to destroy the beacon, not understanding that it was the only thing keeping humanity from an uncontrolled awakening. "Fools," Morrison muttered. "They have no idea what they're doing." Suddenly, new ships appeared on Morrison's sensors. Sleek vessels with crystalline hulls that belonged to the Altarian Republic. But these weren't coming to help the Saurians. They opened fire on Krethak's fleet, and a 3-way battle erupted around the beacon. "Arya, why are the Altarians attacking the Saurians?" "Analyzing their communications, Captain. It appears they have come to the same conclusion we have. They realize that destroying the beacon network could have catastrophic consequences. They are trying to protect it." The battle raged around the ancient structure while Morrison struggled with an impossible decision. He could try to find a way to modify the beacon network, creating a controlled awakening that would bring humanity back gradually. But that would require time he didn't have and knowledge he didn't possess. Alternatively, he could let the network shut down naturally, awakening humanity but triggering their evolutionary transformation. The galaxy would get humans back, but they might not be the same humans who had gone to sleep. "Captain," Arya said, "I'm receiving a transmission from Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez." Morrison's heart leaped. "Tony's awake?" "Not exactly, sir. The transmission is being sent automatically from the beacon network's central hub. It appears that Rodriguez and communications specialist Ben Parker reached the main control facility before succumbing to the beacon's influence. They left a message for you." Rodriguez's familiar voice filled the bridge, though it sounded strained and tired. Jake, if you're hearing this, then the network is probably about to shut down on its own. Ben and I found the central controls, and we think we figured out how to modify the awakening process. We can't stop it, but we might be able to slow it down, make it more gradual. Parker's voice joined in. Captain, we've programmed a sequence that will wake humans in stages, starting with the most isolated colonies and working toward the core worlds. It won't prevent the evolutionary change, but it might give the galaxy time to adjust to what humanity becomes. Rodriguez continued. The controls are automated now. If the network reaches critical overload, our program will activate. But someone needs to protect the central hub until the process is complete. The coordinates are in this transmission. Morrison felt a surge of hope, followed immediately by despair. The central hub was on the other side of the galaxy, and he would never reach it in time. But then he realized something else. He didn't need to reach it himself. Area, can you transmit this information to the Ethereal Collective and the Altarian Republic? Transmitting now, Captain. On the screen, the ethereal representative began to glow brighter. We understand, Captain Morrison. We will protect the central hub and ensure your crew's program can complete its function. But you must survive as well. When humanity awakens, they will need someone who remembers what happened, someone who can guide them through the transformation. Morrison looked around his empty bridge at his sleeping crew at the battle raging outside. The beacon's influence was stronger than ever, promising him peace if he would just give in and sleep. But he couldn't. Not yet. I'll try, he said to the ethereal. But I can feel the beacon calling to me. I don't know how much longer I can resist. Then you must choose, Captain. Sleep now, and trust that others will guide humanity's awakening, or fight the beacon's influence and risk being the only human conscious when your species transforms into something beyond current understanding. Morrison closed his eyes and felt the weight of the galaxy's future pressing down on him. Outside, the battle continued, species fighting over the remnants of human space, while the beacon network prepared to return humanity to a galaxy that had forgotten how to live in peace. DQ. Countdown to humanity's awakening had begun, and Morrison was running out of time to decide whether he would face it awake or asleep. Captain Jake Morrison felt the beacon's pull growing stronger with each passing minute. The battle outside his ship was reaching its peak as Saurian and Altarian fleets clashed around the ancient structure. Inside his mind, peaceful voices whispered, promises of rest, of joining his sleeping crew in blissful silence. Area, Morrison said, his voice strained with effort. How long until the network reaches critical overload? 15 minutes, Captain. Energy readings across all beacon nodes are approaching maximum levels. The automated awakening sequence, programmed by Chief Rodriguez and communications specialist Parker, is standing by. Morrison gripped his chair, fighting waves of exhaustion that weren't natural. The beacon wanted him to sleep, to join the billions of humans waiting in peaceful stasis. But something deep inside him refused to give in. Humanity would need someone who remembered, someone who could explain what had happened when they awakened, to find themselves changed. Suddenly, the space around the beacon filled with new arrivals. Ships from a dozen different species materialized out of hyperspace, their weapons powered but not yet firing. Morrison recognized vessels from the Quantum Collective, the Crystalline Syndicate, even some of the smaller coalition members who had remained neutral during the chaos. Captain, Arya reported, incoming transmission from High Sage Veltara of the Celestial Dominion. The avian leader's feathered face appeared on Morrison's screen. Her usual calm was replaced by obvious worry. Captain Morrison, we have come to witness humanity's return. Our scientists have calculated what will happen when the beacon network shuts down. The galaxy must be prepared for what humanity will become. What do you mean? Morrison asked, though part of him already knew. The evolutionary leap your species is about to undergo will change everything. Humanity will awaken with abilities that seem impossible by current understanding. The question is whether this new humanity will remember the lessons of peace and cooperation, or whether they will become the destroyers the Eternals feared. Morrison watched as more ships arrived. Species that had been fighting each other for months were now gathering in the same space, drawn by the magnitude of what was about to happen. The galaxy was holding its breath, waiting to see what humanity would become. 5 minutes to network shutdown, Area announced. Morrison could barely keep his eyes open. The beacon's call was overwhelming, but he forced himself to stay conscious. Through the viewscreen, he saw something incredible happening. The various alien fleets were forming a protective circle around the beacon, setting aside their conflicts to witness humanity's transformation. War Marshal Krethak's voice crackled over the communication system. "Human Captain, this changes nothing. Whatever your species becomes, the Saurian Imperium will not bow to them." But even as he spoke, Morrison could see uncertainty in the reptilian leader's eyes. The Saurians had been expecting to claim an easy victory over sleeping humans. They hadn't prepared for the possibility that humanity might awaken as something far beyond their understanding. 2 minutes to shutdown, Area reported. Morrison felt something shift in his mind. The beacon's influence was weakening as the network prepared to release its hold on humanity. But something else was taking its place, a growing awareness that seemed to connect him to every sleeping human across the galaxy. He could sense them stirring, billions of minds beginning to wake from their long sleep. But they weren't waking up the same. The evolutionary catalyst that had been suppressed for months was finally activating, changing humanity at the genetic level. 1 minute to shutdown. Morrison's vision blurred, but not from exhaustion. He was seeing things that weren't there, or perhaps things that were everywhere. The space between stars seemed alive with possibilities. Matter and energy appeared to be just different expressions of the same underlying reality. 10 seconds to shut down. The beacon's light began to fade across the galaxy. Similar beacons were powering down as the network that had kept humanity asleep for 6 months finally released its hold. "Network shutdown complete," Arya announced. For a moment, everything was quiet. The battles stopped. The communications chatter ceased. Even the stars seemed to pause in their ancient dance. Then humanity began to wake. Morrison felt it first as a whisper in his mind, the voices of his sleeping crew stirring to consciousness. But their thoughts were different now, clearer and more connected. He could sense Dr. Walsh understanding complex alien languages without translation, Chief Rodriguez perceiving the fundamental structures of matter and energy, communications, Officer Amy Chen hearing conversations across vast distances of space. Across the galaxy, reports began flooding in. On Earth, humans were awakening in their cities and homes. But they were changed. Some could move objects with their thoughts. Others could perceive quantum fields that had been invisible before. Many seemed to understand technologies and concepts that had been beyond human comprehension just hours earlier. The transformation wasn't uniform. Some humans awakened with enhanced empathy, able to understand the emotions and thoughts of other species more clearly than ever before. Others developed abilities that seemed to bend the laws of physics, manipulating matter and energy in ways that defied explanation. But most importantly, they remembered. Every human who awakened retained the memories of their species' history, their role in galactic civilization, and the lessons they had learned about cooperation and peace. On the USS Horizon, Morrison watched his crew stir to life. Dr. Walsh opened his eyes and immediately began speaking in the ancient, eternal language, translating complex passages that had puzzled him for months. Chief Rodriguez sat up and began modifying the ship's engines with his bare hands, somehow understanding how to improve their efficiency by manipulating quantum fields. "Captain," Amy Chen said, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. "I can hear them. Every human in the galaxy. We're all connected now, but we're still ourselves." Morrison felt the change in himself as well. The exhaustion was gone, replaced by a clarity of thought and perception he had never experienced. But more than that, he could sense the needs and fears of every species gathered around the beacon. The Saurians were terrified, realizing they had been preparing to fight beings who were now beyond their understanding. The Altarians were amazed, seeing the potential for a new age of galactic cooperation. The smaller species were hopeful, recognizing that evolved humanity might be even better at maintaining peace than their predecessors. Morrison stood and addressed the assembled fleet. When he spoke, his words were somehow understood by every species, regardless of their language or communication methods. "People of the galaxy," he said, "humanity has returned, but we are not the same. We are more than we were, but we remember who we chose to be. We remember that strength without wisdom leads to destruction, that growth without compassion leads to isolation." He paused, looking at each ship in turn. "The Eternals feared that humanity would burn the galaxy. Instead, we choose to help it grow. We offer not dominion, but partnership, not conquest, but cooperation." War Marshal Krethak was the first to respond. "And if we refuse your offer?" Morrison smiled, and somehow his expression conveyed both infinite patience and overwhelming power. "Then we will respect your choice and leave you in peace. But we hope you will reconsider. The galaxy is vast enough for all of us to grow together." Over the following days, as reports continued to arrive from across human space, it became clear that the transformation had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. Humanity had evolved, but they had retained their essential nature as mediators and peacemakers. The wars that had erupted during humanity's silence began to end as evolved humans offered to help resolve the conflicts. Trade routes reopened under human protection. The Galactic Coalition reformed, stronger than ever, with humanity serving not as leaders but as guardians of galactic civilization. Morrison stood on his bridge, surrounded by his transformed crew, looking out at a galaxy that was learning to hope again. The silence was over. Humanity had returned not as conquerors or destroyers, but as gardeners of a cosmic civilization that could finally grow without fear. The Eternals had been wrong about one thing. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to catalyze change, but their ability to guide that change toward wisdom and peace. They had gone silent, and the galaxy had learned to fear the quiet. Now they had returned, and the galaxy was learning to celebrate the sound of human voices once again.